I'm about to give to you the secret sauce that we use at Magnet Monster to skyrocket every e-commerce brand's lifetime value who walks through the door. And what it is a bastardized version of the old classic jobs to be done framework that if you implement and survey your best customers will improve every single aspect of the customer journey. Everything from your customer acquisition messaging, how you retain customers, your customer service, the overall sentiment the customers have around your brand, how they utilize and extract value from the products will be improved if you deploy this simple 6-question framework and actually take the time to interpret this information and improve the overall customer journey. Your acquisition costs are going to improve, your conversion rate is going to get stronger, and your retention and how frequently people come back to spend with you will undoubtedly improve. So let me show you what it is and when you should send it. So let's start with the latter first, actually. This 6-question framework is something that you can deploy manually via campaigns, or you can set up some type of automation triggered off a rule when a customer hits a certain criteria. Now, obviously, you can send these questions to every single customer on your database anytime someone buys. There's certain instances when you could actually include these in pop-ups, in the post-purchase surveys, and obviously in the emails that go out to customers who do purchase. However, I will say what you want to do specifically with this exercise is identify who those best customers are. So usually you will want to put some type of guardrails and criteria in. For example, customers who have placed at least 3, 4, 5 orders overall time, or maybe a certain monetary value depending on the category you're operating in and how frequently customers come back. You'll also want to look at your most recent customers realistically, because survey responses over email, let's be honest, are not that high. So if you are sending emails out, just be aware that even if these are your best customers, the response rate is not going to be huge. So you do need the sample size to really make this exercise work. You can also experiment with things like customer agents, where they will call customers and conduct the research on your behalf. Any way that you can get these questions in front of your customers, I highly recommend pursuing that. The more data you collect, the better. Okay, so let's get into the actual question frameworks. And the first one we're going to start with is the trigger. What was happening in your life that led you to first look for product type? So why do we ask this question? We ask it because it identifies the job the product was hired to do. And this is a core reason why customers actually seek out what you're actually selling. What this will feed is obviously your welcome flow, but more importantly than this, if we look at the overall customer acquisition journey and how we bring customers in through the door for the first time, this is the main reason to ask this question. You want to identify what that pain point is and then really double down and experiment with hooks and angles to actually bring more of these customers in. So start with the trigger. That is the most valuable piece of information that you can actually get, because everything is downstream of the reason they bought. The second question you want to ask is what I call the aha moment, and that is, what happens during your first experience with us that made you realize this was the right choice? Why ask this question? Because it pinpoints the specific feature or brand touch points that creates the stickiness. And this is very important because you will want to make sure that this is prevalent again in the messaging, because a lot of retention is determined from the very first interaction with the customer that they have with your brand. So make sure that they're actually buying for the right reasons and that you're highlighting some of the benefits that they actually get from the products. This will make it more noticeable to the customer. They'll double down on this, and then this will improve the overall retention as a byproduct. And this is obviously going to feed things like the post-purchase flow. So you're going to double down on the answers to these questions to improve the overall onboarding and drive up the chances of a repeat sale. The third one is the competitive moat. If your brand closed tomorrow, what would you miss the most? Where would you go instead? It's obvious why we're asking this, because we want to find out who the competitors are, even though we will probably already be aware of this. But specifically, we want to know, why do they trust us as opposed to a competitor? What are the unique selling points and propositions of our brands that make us buy from us as opposed to them? Because if you're trying to grow market share, you need to be doubling down on those specific points and highlighting them as a form of competition with your competitors. Important to note on this one, by the way, that don't think your customers live in a vacuum and a universe where you are the only brand that exists. Every single customer will be switching from time to time to other brands. They will be shopping the market very frequently. There's a lot of scientific research from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute that shows that customers do behave in a way where they buy from several other brands in the category. So don't feel sensitive if you start to see answers to these questions. The customers do shop elsewhere and they do buy other products. This is completely natural market behavior that honestly you can't really change. So just double down on the specific points where it's highlighted how you're differentiated and what your unique value proposition is. So that is obviously, again, going to help with everything from acquisition to retention, but specifically for email and retention channels, it's going to help with churn prevention because we want to highlight these differentiated points to make sure that they only choose us going forward in a perfect world. The fourth question we want to ask is what I call the friction, and that is what almost stopped you from buying from us for the first time. You will see this is quite commonplace with CRO specialists, conversion rate optimization. They ask this question quite frequently. And the reason being is because we want to identify the conversion killers we can fix in our messaging. So it goes back to that overall customer journey and acquisition. Are we making sure that we are removing bottlenecks and friction to when customers can purchase from us in a seamless fashion? And that is obviously going to feed things like our cart abandonment flow, but primarily what you want to find out from this is what is the friction that's stopping customers buying from you for the first time. So very important question to ask. Number 5 on this list is the routine. So how does product currently fit into your daily or monthly routine? Why ask this question? Ask it because it helps us understand usage frequency for better replenishment timing, and also just making sure that the customer adheres and is accountable to the reason they actually bought the product and they get results. So obviously from an email and retention perspective, this is going to feed things like the replenishment flow and post-purchase journey. But really what you want to double down on is, again, going back to the initial trigger, what are the specific pain points that your problem is solving for? And how can you use this to create a better post-purchase journey to make sure you onboard them correctly? And then downstream of that, that will obviously lead to repeat purchases naturally with or without marketing. The final question on this list is the referral. How would you describe us to a friend who has never heard of us? And the reason we are asking this is because it gives us the exact high converting copy for our ads and emails. Again, just some social proof that can be really powerful in how we position, talk about the brand, and communicate with customers. Obviously, this can feed things like a referral flow. So if you do want to run word of mouth campaigns where you're asking customers to refer you out, then you can use some of these snippets and testimonials as well. But it's just very, very powerful to actually collect this data and understand the overall sentiment that you evoke in customers. So this 6-question framework, I guarantee if you deploy it in the post-purchase journey or when a customer triggers a certain criteria, when they reach a VIP status, you want to find out who your best customers are and then send them this and then collect all that qualitative data and then use it to improve the overall business, everything from your ad creatives to your product description pages to obviously your retention strategy should be based off the answers that you get to this question framework. It will give you so many unique differentiating perspectives and qualities that you just haven't considered before, because a lot of the time we are working off guesswork and assumptions. This is going to give you some concrete data and invaluable qualitative research that you can use to communicate with your customers and increase the overall profitability of your store.